Could you please take a roll call for us, Matt?
Hamler. Here. Hammer. Is absent. Finkler.
Here.
Beckman.
Here.
Curtis.
Here.
Tom.
Here.
Rule.
Here.
Thank you. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. The next item then is to approve the agenda for the evening. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda with removal of the consent agenda and under reports 1 and 2.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with removal of the consent agenda and the reports section. Any questions on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. We don't have anyone present this evening for visitors' comments or utility commissions communications, I believe. So move on to unfinished business number 1. Although the commission approved the purchase of a RAS pump from Sable Mechanical last week, we need to reconsider that, and there's a recommendation to purchase a similar unit from B&M for the quoted amount of $4,923. There was plenty of information in our packet, and we have Jacob here if there's any questions on the item.
Yeah, it was just to clarify, so you guys know that Sable does have the ability to order the pump. It would just be 8 to 10 weeks. It would be the same pump, same price. Or B&M has 2 similar VFDs. They are not in our facility, but they are very similar in design and function. And they have 2 on hand, and they are actually cheaper and can be installed within 2 weeks.
So, Jake, in your opinion, then it's just best to go with that more readily available option?
For this purpose, yeah. There's no reason to wait another 8 weeks for something we really is going to be a backup, and we need it because we have a pump that's having a mechanical failure.
Thank you.
Do you think there would be any concern about the PLC logic controlling portion of it that you mentioned in the packet, or do you think that's going to be easy to navigate?
I think the PLC logic will be fine. I just think it may take a little bit more troubleshooting with B&M's technician than it would be just to have the exact same unit installed and downloaded. But we're going to hold them to the 1 day worth of troubleshooting and setup, so they'll make it work.
All right.
And if not, we'll have Dave Byer on call to come in and help with any logic with the SCADA system.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? If there's no questions, I'll take a motion to approve the purchase of the VFD from B&M for $4,923.
I move to approve the purchase of the RAS pump from B&M Technical Service Incorporated for $4,923.
Do you need to rescind the other award?
No.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of the RAS pump number 3 for $4,923 from B&M. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, Matt, could you take a roll call on this?
Rule.
Aye.
Hamler.
Aye.
Beckman.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Curtis.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. On to new business item number 1. Consider and take action on a request to bond $835,000 for sewer projects. There's information in the packet, but I believe there is some updated numbers on this. Matt, did you want to address that, or?
I'll start, and I will gladly turn it over to Crystal if there's further questions. When we put this together, we were operating off the best information we had at the time. As is always the case, I've found, Jason Letha's paying attention and questioned if that was the right number. And so Jacob, Crystal, and Jason were able to connect this afternoon, go through the numbers, and make sure that everybody was comfortable with where things were at. A lot of the additions are due to making sure we've got contingency in projects and that engineering is also accounted for. And Crystal, please help if I'm missing anything. I do.
Okay, that's
Yep.
right here, there's one for the record.
Perfect,
You
thank
have
you.
yours.
All right.
So instead of just having one number, I did give you the detail.
The other thing that I'd want to take a moment to explain is in your packet, there is a resolution that was passed in 2022 by the council. The reason we wanted to share that resolution is that the city does the bonding, and the previous council has authorized the city administrator and the city treasurer to approve expenses in the period between a project starting and we may not issue the bond until a later date, so that that resolution authorizes the city administrator, city treasurer to authorize expenditures related to the project prior to the bond being finalized and received by the city. Did I get that right,
Correct.
Crystal?
Yes, you did.
Awesome.
It's a letter and it's an intent to reimburse. And that precedes the bond issuance.
And the updated number that we have in front of us is $961,000 compared to the 835, which was on the agenda. Brooke, did you have a question?
I was gonna say, because it's 825 on the agenda, it says 835 on the other
Oh, the
one.
number was 835. I did see that typo on your packet piece. I think your packet piece had 825. I believe that was just a typo. It was the 835. And I do have all my differences and I have where it came from. And I also, if you like, I was going, I can point out what we had in the sewer budget versus what we're actually looking at bonding for. Okay.
I'll just read the amounts quickly on the updated list. It's collection system, 2024 street projects for $112,000, and sewer portion of the vac truck, less trade-in, $200,000. Meister and Waterloo lift stations, additional 3% contingency, $480,000. The clarifier deck, additional 3% contingency, $69,000. And then the dome coating for dome number 3 of $100,000, totaling $961,000.
So just a note on that, where it says additional and then the plus 3% contingency, the word additional is actually meaning the cost difference from the 2022 bond. So the 2022 bond was, sure. The 2022 bond had these two projects listed at a certain cost. That cost now, a few years later, has come in higher, now that we've gone out to contract. And so this is the additional, plus the original 2022 bond did not have 3% contingency on the contract costs. So we've added 3% of the contract cost also. So there's two pieces, additional to the original bond. So you're actually getting additional bond proceeds in conjunction with the old bond proceeds, which are on reserve, restricted reserve. Those two together are the total project cost. So this is the additional amount we need for the project, these two projects.
Thank you for explaining that, because I was noticing the clarifier deck. I was like, that ain't gonna cover it.
Yep, it's
That's
already.
the additional.
it
Thank
was
you very
It's
much.
the additional, yep, and plus 3%
Okay. Thank you for the-
contingency. Yes.
So this is general obligation debt, so essentially the city council will be
This is
approving the
actually
bonding.
not, this is sewer revenue bonds.
So these are revenue bonds?
Yes, these are revenue bonds. That's why we wanted to present to you first before the council starts moving on the bond issues.
Okay,
Those all go through the city, but this would be a sewer revenue bond.
Okay.
Specifically, that's why we wanted to engage with you first.
that's good to know, thank you.
Yes.
So what would the appropriate motion be to approve bonding in the amount of $961,000?
You're approving the project costs.
Okay,
You're approving them for project costs to be bonded by the city.
okay. This is just probably the first step of multiple steps?
Yeah, we wanted you to be involved in the pre-steps.
All right, thank you.
And it's
Yep,
our
So you're
intention-
approving the projects. Oh, go ahead.
It's our intention, April 16th, to take the bond issues to the committee of the whole for the city, and then obviously May 7th for council approval.
Okay. Any further questions on this one? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the borrowing for $961,000.
Make a motion to allow city treasurer to bond the requested monies for the 2024 sewer utility projects, excuse me.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If none, should we take a roll call on this probably?
Correct.
Okay.
Handler?
Aye.
Beckman?
Aye.
Tone?
Aye.
Curtis?
Aye.
Finkler?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Crystal.
You're welcome.
On to new business number 2 then, wastewater treatment plant dome number 3 repaint repair. Approval of contract submitted by Sanchez Coatings and Environmental Incorporated for $99,825. The quote was submitted February 6, 2024, and the work is tentatively scheduled to begin after April 1st. So we're going to need approval on that contract. There's a copy of the contract in your packet. And time is of the essence on this, I believe, because we want to get this done in coordination with the clarifier deck project, or?
Yeah, this was a new guy, didn't have the paperwork for the meeting last week. So now that I have it, the Sanchez Coating and Environmental was actually waiting for us to provide them the signed documents so they could mobilize and be here shortly after April 1st. Giving as much time as possible between the finishing of the epoxy and the painting before any sandblasting, cutting, or removal of the concrete around that dome takes place would most likely impair the ability for that coating to cure. So you don't want to overlap that time frame, and given that it's probably going to be a very damp spring, it seems like, they're going to need a little bit of additional time to have that coating hardened properly. So just want to make sure we have a good buffer between the two projects.
It's nice that they kept us on their preliminary schedule, I guess, without having a signed contract.
Yeah, well,
So,
it's a good chunk of change, you know.
yeah, yeah. All right, any more questions on this one? If not, I would take a motion to approve the contract with Sanchez Coating and Environmental for $99,825.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Sanchez Coating and Environmental for the repainting restoration of dome number 3 for the sum of $99,825.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the contract with Sanchez for wastewater treatment plant dome number 3 for the amount stated. Any questions on the motion? If none, we'll need a roll call on this.
Beckman?
Aye.
Tone?
Aye.
Curtis?
Aye.
Finkler?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye.
Handler?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. On to new business number 3 then. Review and approve Aquafix Quick Zyme D addition to the aerobic digestion process for a 90-day trial in the amount of $7,892.86. There is a lot of information in our packet about this, and I know this was discussed briefly at the meeting last week about this opportunity, and I'm pretty impressed with the amount of information we've got here. This is going to be something new. I don't personally have any concerns about this. My only question would be budget-wise, whether this is in the operations budget.
It is, there is enough room in the operations budget to handle this. I just mentioned that I was working with Aquafix on figuring a plan for this. I was given a price very quickly, and we're coming together with a 90-day testing period. I'm actually pretty excited about the test with the help of Aquafix, which is in Madison, so they're very eager to have a very local test subject, I guess you could say, in a real-world situation. We could actually see almost a 60% reduction in the volume of our solids from this process before we even get it to the belt filter press, which makes cake, which was the original issue we had with space. We can't stack wet cake. Well, if you have 60% less cake to make, you're going to have plenty of room. So this could be a massive amount of savings. And I did a rough estimate for the pricing that they gave us. This was a half price for the the chemical. At full price, it would cost roughly $54,000 a year. Based on the price of the dryer project, that's over 65 years of chemical use. So, a lot of savings.
Any other, go ahead. Any other questions on this?
Just the one, as I recall last week when we met, that the price seemed significantly lower for the Aquafix than what's in the quote here, is compared to what you mentioned last week.
Oh, that was for the, for a total for the year. If it would, what we would have the Aquafix chemical for a year. If we were to use it, it was a rough estimate of how much it would actually cost. This is a 50% discounted rate of the 55-gallon drums that we would need for the 90-day test. They're giving us that discounted rate because we're allowing them to use our facility as their test subject. So they're doing us a favor, and they're also going to be doing all the lab sampling and lab testing and providing the data to us. But yeah, it's came in fairly cheap. And to be honest, I think it's probably going to be our best bet to do a quick study to make sure that if we do decide to go with the dryer, it's the right move. If not, there are some process modifications that we can do in the facility to better our chances of maintaining a quality product, a quality facility, and actually having plenty of room.
And do we need DNR approval to do this study?
There is no massive changes to the actual process. There is nothing that needs to be additionally taken care of. There's no chemical addition that'll be residual in the solids. It's actually just an enzyme, which is a bacteria that will essentially eat and digest the material that we currently cannot digest based on the fact that it's an insoluble organic. This will digest insoluble organics in a different manner, which reduces bulking and increases compaction.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do like that you pointed out in the information here that that the goal is to separate the two digester tanks by running one tank as per current practices for control, and that the second tank would be fed the enzyme, so you have a comparison. You'll know pretty quickly whether we're getting the results we want or not, so I like that.
Yeah, my goal, as I mentioned here just briefly, in detail actually, but in briefly, I like to, if we could possibly run our process now is 1 week of settling, 1 week of running the belt filter press, and we do that, every other week. If I can get that duration of time where we're storing the solids in our aerobic digester to 4 weeks, 60 days, 90 days maybe, and still have the solids that we can actually pump up to the building, we would be dewatering instead of 2% solids, sometimes upwards of 1 to 6% solids possibly, which would make the chemical use a lot less, and it would be a lot easier for us to get a higher cake solid. 11 to 13% cake is poor. The goal is to get over 20, and if this works well, step 2 will be looking at chemicals to add to the belt filter press process to get us over 30 to 40% solids.
Did you say that Sun Prairie or somebody else was participating in this? I thought I heard something during your report. Maybe that was a different item, but I thought maybe there was another utility somewhere around here that was looking into this as well.
Sun Prairie is actually looking into a solar dryer that we looked into.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And they have a technology that is similar to the dryer that we're selecting, only it's called E-load. It's electroosmosis dewatering, which electrifies the sludge and pulls the water out of the cells and between the cells and pulls the chemicals out. So basically what you have is a 40 to 60% increase in the solids production versus, a drying product, which, evaporated out. This electrifies it and pulls it all out. Okay. I actually requested that Rupert Milke look into that technology as a possible alternative for us because of the price and the fact that it's a very small footprint.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this item? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the contract with Aquafix for the 90-day trial in the amount of $7,892.86.
I'll move to approve the excuse me, contract with Aquafix for the 90-day trial for $7,892.86.
I'll second.
Get a motion and a second to approve the contract with Aquafix in the amount stated. Any discussion on the motion? If none, please take a roll call, Matt. Aye.
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 Thank you. The next item is to adjourn the meeting. Anyone want to make that motion?
Move to adjourn.
I will second.
A motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.